Member for Karama.
Madam Speaker, it is my honour and a privilege to share with you all my personal feelings, emotions, beliefs and life learnings, along with my visions, goals and aspirations for my time in the 15th Northern Territory Legislative Assembly. So my speech today will be characterised by a number of three-word phrases that have guided my life and will continue to do so. So let's begin with love, compassion and tolerance. I say again, love, compassion and tolerance. These are the virtues that my darling Irish mother, Breda O'Gallagher, instilled into our large family as being the most important to follow. They're also shared by my father, Rory O'Gallagher, in his own distinctive way. Mum and Dad were both born in Ireland, as were my four eldest siblings, Aileen, Rory, Fergus and Ethna. In the late 50s, they moved to England to find better work opportunities. Noting my father was a hard-working bricklayer. And I was born on Christmas Day, 25th of December, 1957, at home. Now, I'm pretty sure Mum and Dad welcomed this, but I'm unsure if my eldest siblings shared this joy, as it may have interfered with their Christmas expectations and the arrival of Santa and some toys. You can probably understand that 3 or 5-year-old children may vote differently if given the choice between another brother or a Lego set. In 1960, Dad and Mum took the adventurous plunge again and took the £10 offer to migrate to Australia with their young and growing family, with my younger sister, Grania, now that's a hard one to spell, I'll test you later on that one, being born here soon after arrival. Suffice to say, we were never rich, but we had a great family life, been raised in Cockatoo in the Dandenong Ranges of Victoria. Like many loving parents, Mum and Dad were focused on creating a great opportunity for their children, and especially giving them a strong education. Dad used to say his goal was to help all of us to either finish high school or get a trade, and he didn't care which. As I said, we were never rich materially, but we were always well fed, always had clean, if maybe second-hand school uniforms, and had parents that cared and loved for us. Unfortunately, as I walk the streets of Karama, Malak and even Nucky Lagoon, I see many children who do not have this loving and compassionate environment to support them, and are having their lives derailed, and they have been pushed into crime and antisocial behaviour. When I look back at my family, each and every one of them are loving, compassionate and tolerant. As just one example, during the 1983 Ash Wednesday bushfires, my father and my eldest brother both lost their family homes. A couple of days later, a friend of our family offered Mum and Dad a spare house he had for them to live in. Dad just smiled, thanked him for his kind offer and politely declined. And he suggested he offer it to a young family who were also staying at the Emergency Community Centre, as they needed it more than him and Mum. I continue to do my best to also embrace these virtues. I generally feel that giving gives me greater joy than receiving. And on that note, can I thank Tajinder Singh and the Sikh Family Food Van for the opportunity to help him and his family in their charitable work to deliver food on the weekends to the vulnerable people of Karama Malak. Such work certainly keeps me grounded and reminds me of the residents who I've been elected to serve. This brings me to my second three-word phrase: visible, accessible and service. I say again, visible, accessible and service. Having walked the electorate almost 3 times during this election campaign, The biggest concerns from residents was that nobody wanted to listen to their cries for help, let alone act upon them. Nobody had come around to find out how they were travelling. Getting a response to any approaches they made about their concerns fell on deaf ears and just got caught up in bureaucratic waffle. This will not be me. I have as a motto or brand or whatever you want to call it, 3 items listed on my shirt, stationery and soon-to-be office signage, which define me for residents. And they are visible, accessible and serving our community. And I expect my community to hold me to account on these. Talking of concerns, the greatest and most frequent concern raised with me by residents of Karama, Malak and Ngaree Lagoon was and remains crime and antisocial behaviour, and especially antisocial behaviour associated with many public housing tenancies. Let me put on the record again, I am all for public housing, and I recognise that there are many wonderful and well-deserving public housing tenants. I also recognise that there is an 8-year waiting list, and we will need to invest in more well-planned public housing in the future. However, we do have 5 significant issues with public housing, particularly in Karama and Malak. First, public houses being used as drug houses, where dealers in misery are selling drugs 24 hours a day, including to young children. Secondly, public houses being significantly vandalised at great expense to the taxpayer. And we're not talking about wear and tear, a phrase a former Chief Minister used to use, but about $50,000 to $80,000 worth of damage. And this seems to get fixed quickly just to happen again. Whereas I know some long-term, well-deserving tenants struggle to get a blocked tap or a broken air conditioner fixed for months or even years. Thirdly, public houses being overcrowded with sometimes up to 20 or 30 visitors, continually around fighting, screaming and causing chaos all night and sometimes all day long, and destroying the lives of neighbouring residents. I know of residents who have reported such behaviour to police and housing 25 days in a row during a single month. 4, public houses that remain vacant for a long time, subject to disrepair and squatting and overgrown gardens and verges that are unsightly and a potential fire hazard to the neighbourhood. And the 5th one, the other major issue with public housing is the overly high density and concentration of public housing in many streets of Karama Malak compared to elsewhere in Darwin. We are essentially creating ghettos in some of our streets. This needs to be urgently addressed, including the option of selling off some of these houses to first home buyers. So I will be a loud voice for residents who have had their lives and in some cases house values destroyed over the last 8 years. And to name a few, let me openly say, for Jim, Barbara and Linda, who have continual antisocial behaviour occurring in neighbouring units in Tabletop Place and Malak, I am here for you. For the wonderful Moore family in Connor and Magdalen Courts, Malak, who have suffered sleep deprivation for many years from neighbouring antisocial behaviour, I am here for you. For Kia and Tony, who have had to spend around $40,000 to help improve the safety of their own house in Fig Court, Karama, I am here for you. For Michaela and a young family, and I can say the Chief Minister during the campaign visited this family with me, whose husband had a knife put to his throat by a bunch of youths demanding money at 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, right in front of his young family, including their 1-year-old and 3-year-old children. I am here for you. For Fula and Drosso, who've had to almost turn their veranda into a prison to stay safe in Kajara Court, Karama, I am here for you. For Dean White in Karama, who has major concerns about neighbouring public houses operating as drug houses, and he has been reporting this quite often. I am here for you. For James Hawkes and the 20 residents who met with myself and the Deputy Chief Minister during our campaign and aired their concerns about the antisocial behaviour happening in Delwood Crescent, Malac and neighbouring streets, I'm here for you. To all the other residents that I have sat down with across the electorate, including those living in Dorrigo, Karama, Mahogany and Copra Crescents, Mistletoe Circuit, Sedge Court, Manunda Terrace and Applegum and Kalimnos Drives in Karama, and Abbott, Chambers and Delwood Crescents, Hummel, Maddock, Marshall and Squire Courts and Darwin Street in Malac and Lagoon Road in Nucky Lagoon. I am here for you. Some other special acknowledgements across the electorate. Thank you to Bill from Malac and Melanie for Karama, who publicly supported my campaign via press conference and video, urging for a change in government. Thank you to the Filipino community, including Christy and other parishioners at the Holy Family Parish Church in Karama, for your long-standing support. Special thanks to my good friends John and Edna Rivas. Likewise, thank you to David Din, Tai Tung and other members of the local Vietnamese community. Thank you to the Papa Thomas family and Peter Mary in Kalimnos Drive and Lefty Spiropoulos in Applegum Drive, Karama, along with all of my Greek and Cypriot friends who supported me in this campaign. And I need to make a very special acknowledgement of the long-term Indigenous residents of the electorate, including Larrakia elders, who openly said about 18 months ago that they had always voted Labor and would continue to do so, but stated that as a local councillor, I was the only person publicly voicing their concerns about crime and antisocial behaviour. 6 months ago, many of them reached out to me again to say, whilst they had always voted Labor, they had changed their mind, and although they weren't necessarily voting for the CLP, they were going to vote for me to represent them in this parliament. They, like many other residents, wanted to change the government and want us, the CLP, to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour. Now let me move on to my next three-word phrase. Vision, judgment, attention to detail. Make it attention, but attention to detail is what I mean. Now, without reading out my resume, suffice to say that I've had the pleasure to work with many great leaders in the federal and Northern Territory governments and in the private sector. With both governments, I worked with and led core teams focused on delivering major projects, such as bringing a strong focus on the development potential of Northern Australia, the Darwin to Adelaide Railway Project, the Impex Gas Project, the development of the Darwin Business Park, and the development of an offshore supply base at East Arm. All of these projects required vision, judgment and attention to detail. As Managing Director of the Office of Major Projects, Asian Engagement and Trade, I directly supported various Chief Ministers, Ministers and local industry in their trade missions to our key Asian markets, including Japan, Indonesia, China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Timor-Leste, as well as visits to USA and Europe. We always punched above our weight with our international engagement. And I was successful in getting our Chief Ministers one-on-one meetings with the President of Indonesia and the Prime Ministers of Japan and Vietnam, despite initial advice from the Australian government that this would not be possible. Don't ever believe it. We can do it if we want to do it. A particular highlight of my team was the initiation and development of the live cattle trade over a 3-year period with Vietnam, which proved invaluable for our local industry when the Australian government, in a knee-jerk reaction to a Four Corners report, suspended our trade with Indonesia. And I heard that referenced by the member of Blaine. On that note, I give due credit to two of my team members, Jeff Stewart and Tai Tung. Once again, vision, judgment and attention to detail was required to deliver this new trade. After leaving the Northern Territory government in 2014, I also had the pleasure as working as the Deputy CEO of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce for 5 years, with the then CEO and my good friend Greg Bicknell. It was here where I worked hard to support our small to medium businesses, who I publicly described as the heart and soul of our economy. One of our highlights was getting the NT government to focus on local procurement, including the introduction of local content weightings, which recognised that the net benefit of local business employing local people and reinvesting locally far outweighs a contract going to an interstate company who may be able to offer a slightly cheaper price. Hence why I was astonished and publicly stood against the City of Darwin's decision to reduce their local content weighting from 30% to 20%, noting that the NT government still maintains a 30% weighting. Surely, if there's one level of government that should be fully supportive of local business, it should be local government. I will continue to advocate for the City of Darwin to reverse this decision. I left the Chamber in 2020 to contest the 2020 election. No surprise, I came second, but I did gain a small swing to the CLP, whereas the other northern suburbs swung strongly to Labor. I believe there are a number of reasons for this, including people staying with the existing government during COVID, the disruption to our CLP campaign with the rise of Territory Alliance, and lingering anger over the ego-fighting legacy of the Giles government. The old axiom of disunity is death certainly influenced the electorate in 2020. This disunity was highlighted in the book Crocs in the Cabinet, which should have highlighted the pitfalls to avoid for any future government. However, unfortunately, it seems the former Labor government mistakenly adopted it as a manual for operations. I can't wait for the sequel to come out to be called Crocs in the Cabinet, the Dan Murphy saga. This brings me to my next three-word phrase. Park your egos. Let me congratulate the Chief Minister and all my CLP parliamentary colleagues on running a very disciplined and unified campaign. I'm very happy we brought forward a clear plan to reduce crime, rebuild our economy and restore our lifestyle, which was overwhelmingly endorsed by Territorians. We are now all part of a great 17-member CLP team, and we need to hold each other to account that we deliver and implement that plan that we put forward. While I understand everyone can have ambitions, let us all learn from the past mistakes of the former Labor and CLP governments and focus on serving and staying connected with our community. Parking our egos and focusing on working as a unified team to improve the lives and opportunities for Territorians is what Territorians want from us. We all have the opportunity to be part of a wonderful new Territory government, so let's do it. My next three-word phrase is lifelong friends. I have to admit that during my life and working career, my greatest reward is making new lifelong friends. For example, I have friends from university and my career in the federal government who I may not see for many years, and yet when we catch up, it's like we've never been apart. Like other members, as a successful candidate, many new people are now approaching me to become their friends. Fair enough. However, it is the friends that have supported and stayed with me during the hard times, including during the previous election, which I lost, that I value most. So let me thank some of those lifelong friends. First and foremost is my darling wife, Mary Lou, who is my love, rock and support. We actually met back in the 1980s when we were both working at the Bureau of Transport Economics in Canberra. You couldn't get a clearer example of a work colleague becoming a lifelong friend. And of course, Mary Lou and I have been blessed to raise our family in Darwin, Not too sure whether he's made it. Yes, he has made it. Good on you. We had to change the schedule. Yeah. Big shout out to my 20-year-old son, Fergus, who was born here in Darwin and is a fantastic paramedic working here with St John's Ambulance Service. No wonder I am a great supporter of our frontline service officers, and I'm really glad that the CLP is strengthening the legislation to support them. Equally, a big shout out to my wonderful 28-year-old daughter Nadia, who we were blessed to be able to adopt from Fiji when she was only 7 months old. Nadia completed her criminal and justice degree at Griffith University. I think she saw too many CSI movies or something a couple of years ago, and is now working in Queensland Corrections Department. Most important, Nadia and her then partner Caleb have given us a fantastic grandson, Arlo, who turns 6 years old next week on the 23rd of October. Happy birthday, Arlo, and thanks for the joy you bring to all of us. Thank you also to all of mine and Mary Lou's brothers and sisters and their families. You are the nucleus of our lives. I have a few more people to specifically mention, but can I just pass on my thanks to all of our wonderful neighbours, my former work colleagues, the CLP team, including members of Darwin North Branch, and all of those who donated to me and helped me during the campaign. We are blessed to live in a great neighbourhood, and many times after a long day campaigning, it was our lifelong friends, Brian and Janice Price, who are up there, who would invite us to come over and unwind and have a meal and a chat. I think the phrase Pricey used to use was, "Would you like a lemonade?" And on a late Friday, yes, we did. Likewise, I've had a number of local business people who are also lifelong friends, and I want to especially thank Lance and Wendy Martin for your fantastic friendship and support. Finally, I want to thank my dear friend and campaign manager, Sean Marnie, who has been a great lifelong friend for many years. For those who don't know, Sean owns and is the CEO of the International College of Advanced Education, which is the largest hospitality training college in Northern Territory. For the last 4 years, up until June this year, I worked for Sean as his International Business Development Manager. ICAE currently has around 180 international students from around 17 different countries studying commercial cookery and hospitality, along with remedial massage and beauty therapy. And I know the member for Catherine, in her previous role as Minister for International Education, came out and gave a number of speeches and awarded graduates, and I think you were totally impressed when you saw what was actually happening on the ground. Sean recently received the prestigious 25 Year of Service Award from Hospitality NT in recognition of the importance that his students make to our local industry. Most restaurants and hotels around Darwin often rely on ICAE students to help them function. And many of these students have gone on to become Australian citizens and have raised their families, and they've set up businesses here in the Northern Territory. That's a really good story. However, the success of these and many other international students who have come to study, live and work in the Northern Territory is being jeopardised by the one-size-fits-all approach by the Australian government to reduce the numbers of student visas. Here is an opportunity for a Team NT approach from both the new CLP government and the Labor opposition, in partnership with the independent members and local industry and education institutions, to collectively lobby the Australian government to adjust its policy so that it better reflects the needs of regional Australia, where we need more people and workers, not less. Now let's just turn to my final three-word phrase. Just do it. Just do it. How many times over the years have Territorians been frustrated by endless reviews, establishment of new consultation committees, and the commissioning of new and expensive inquiries, just to get some report that gathers dust in the bookcase? And yet we know from a gut feel and common sense perspective that we should have just gone on and done it. So here are two suggestions that I put forward to all elected members to get behind. First, we all hear of the housing crisis occurring in Northern Territory. Let's seize the approach of previous CLP governments who had the vision and will to develop Palmerston many years ago. I believe it is time to develop Waddell now. Much of the design and technical work has already been done. Let's put the challenge out to our local private sector to get on with developing Waddell as our next major project. Apart from creating a major stimulus to our economy with many local jobs, it gives us a chance to deliver affordable housing for our essential workers such as teachers and nurses and many first home buyers in well-designed neighbourhoods that serve all of our community. Secondly, we need to invest in new aged care facilities now. I recall visiting my old friend Ron Smith when he spent months, along with many other aged patients, lying in a ward at Royal Darwin Hospital. This was a sad reflection on the lack of suitable aged care facilities in the Territory, and was taking up a lot of much-needed beds at RDH. So let's invest in new aged care facilities in all of our major Territory centres, including Darwin, Katherine, Tennant Creek and Alice Springs. As I said, just do it. And in the spirit of just do it, we must deliver on the plan that we promised to Territorians during the campaign. And all of our united CLP team must keep each other accountable to this. This also includes the election commitments that we made to our electorates. In this regard, we must deliver on the promise to trial a permanent police presence at Karama shops, which was in response to a petition that came to this Assembly, the previous Assembly, a couple of years ago, from 1,200 local residents, predominantly from Karama and Malak, seeking a permanent police presence. It's time we listened and acted on what the community wants. So even just to trial something, a mobile caravan for 6 months, see if it works, that's what we're seeking. So finally, as a wrap-up, let me say that I am privileged to be one of the 25 people to be elected to this, the 15th Legislative Assembly in Northern Territory. Sure, we will no doubt have genuine and vigorous debates and arguments about various legislation, policies and programs that will come before this Assembly. And so we should, as part of our democratic process. But my hope is that we can treat each other with due respect and, where we can, collaborate on creating a brighter future for all Territorians. As a start, let's share some love, compassion and tolerance with each other. And who knows, we may make some new lifelong friends.